I think you have a lot more to gain than lose if you go and try to trade for them right now, right? If you try and give someone, hey, you spent the 109, the 110, 110, spent the 109, the 110, the 111 on these guys. I'm going to give you like a 10, 20% profit on your investment, sight unseen. I think a lot of people might take that because, they're going to feel like, again, they're being the patient, prudent party where they haven't even seen these guys play a real NFL game yet. They're already making a bit of a profit. It's a small win for them. And I think you have a chance to take on just that minimal little inflated risk, but potentially get a very big reward because of how these guys are positioned.
What? Why are you shaking your head? You're welcome.
Hey there, this is Jakob Sanderson from Dynasty Points and from Thinking About Thinking, and I'm back with my second video regarding dynasty theory, dynasty philosophy, and how to apply it. I'm going to take a little step back from last week where we talked about the three currencies of dynasty and the more philosophical side, and we're going to go a little bit more practical today. We're going to talk about how to feel about rookies in the preseason and in the very early stages of the regular season in terms of their trade value, okay? First thing we're going to talk about today, my number one rule of thumb, and I call it the pumpkin spice latte rule. This comes from last year. People were asking me in various Discords, what do we do with Devon Achane? He was a healthy scratch in week 1 of last season. People were panicking. Of course, he ends up becoming one of the bigger hits from last year's rookie class. And my answer to that was, until you start craving a pumpkin spice latte, you are not allowed to panic on Devon Achane. For me personally, that comes usually about the first week of October, okay? Right around the quarter pole of an NFL season. Here's why I think that that's important. First, we're going to take a little step back into the past, right? Drew, DF bean counter, whatever he goes by, the bulletproof bean counter, previously had a rule called the face planter rule, right? And that was any rookie who went through a full season and wound up being lower in ADP by a round than the previous season at that time, after the season, that was someone who was considered a face planter. You wanted to get out of them. The record of those face planters' fantasy careers was very, very poor after the first season. In recent years, we have a little bit of a Goodhart's Law effect to that, okay? And Goodhart's Law is the idea that once a measure becomes a target, it ceases to become a good measure. Effectively, this means once we start saying something like, oh, you can't have a face planter, right? Then people start getting so concerned about face planters that we stop actually evaluating the season in a vacuum. We just start evaluating the proxy variable, right? Whether someone fell in ADP doesn't actually say anything about how they just performed. It's just kind of a proxy for how the market reacts. And in this case, the market has reacted, I think, mostly sharply in the sense that face planters have this compounding effect where we already react negatively to the rookie season. Then we see that these players are face planting. We're more aware of the history of these face planters, and we want to get out at all costs. Quentin Johnston is a great example of this, right? You look back at like a Jalen Reagor after his rookie season, he still actually carried a good amount of trade value. And the idea of Drew's work back then was, look, you just draft these players, you let them play out the full rookie year, and if they're a face planter, you can probably still re-roll them for 70, 75% of what you had originally paid. And at the time, that was very much true. Quentin Johnston last year was generally going at the 1.7 or the 1.8 in rookie drafts. If you wanted to move him this offseason, you were probably cashing out for, at best, like a late or far in the future 2. More likely, you were probably looking at like an early 3 type of value. You lost a lot if you were trying to move off of Quentin Johnston this year. So we have to stay ahead of that. That's why I'm now calling it the pumpkin spice latte rule, right? What we want to try and do is look at these rookies early in the season and try to keep some grace of whether we're at least seeing some productive signs of performance, right? And early in the season, I'm focused a little bit less on usage. The same goes to the preseason, right? And a little bit more on, are they good with their opportunities, okay? If a player actually is only running 30, 35% of the routes, but they're earning targets on their routes, they're looking good to the eye test, I'm willing to hold out hope that they're going to get some more opportunities down the line. If these are players that are either getting a lot of opportunity and looking poorly on it, right? That would be the big red flag for me. Or they're not getting that much opportunity, but they're also not really popping when they do get their opportunities. I think we want to be a little bit of the head of the market on trying to sell before the value seeps out of them, while people are still thinking they're getting a buy low, while they still think they have the longest view in the room. On the other side of things, especially at this time of preseason where the season hasn't even started yet, I want to be taking an overall sort of most positive view of all news that I can for these rookies. That doesn't mean they're all going to work out. But what it means is, right, this is why we invest in rookies in the first place, is we know that they have asymmetrical value upside. Okay. A rookie can only go down in value so much outside of maybe the true elites, like the Calebs, the Jade Daniels, the Malik Neighbors, the guys at the top of the class. Everybody else kind of starts the year worth maybe one base first, maybe a late first, maybe a second, maybe a third, etc. So there's only so much you can lose. But there's a long way to go up, right? There's a long way to go up that you can win. These are players that disproportionately can increase in value when you compare them to other players. And so how do we have to approach that? Well, we want to attack these type of assets, and we want to leave ourselves open to this asymmetric upside. And so that means, for me, a player like Brian Thomas, where every single time you want to read something about the Jacksonville Jaguars, every reporter at their camp, even reporters of other teams that are covering the Jaguars temporarily, can't stop saying glowing things about Brian Thomas, right? Another example of this is Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy has been ripping up Chiefs camp, and things have really broken well for him, where Marquise Brown is now hurt. And based on the preseason routes, it looks like Worthy is going to be running almost every single route out of the gate for the Kansas City Chiefs in a way that other rookie receivers have not been allowed to do under Andy Reid and that organization. These both look like guys to me where two things are really working in their favor right now. Number one, they're going to be out there on the field, right? Based on the preseason usage, we can be pretty confident first month of the season, they're going to run a lot of routes. That means that they're probably going to compile some level of stats almost just by osmosis, right? You run 80, 90% of the routes, especially on an offense like the Chiefs, but even a pretty good offense like the Jacksonville Jaguars, you're going to have some moments. And that means, worst case, even if these players don't look super impressive early on, they're probably going to have enough raw counting stats that you're going to be able to flip these guys as young players that people think might be able to grow over the course of the season. I don't think they're at much risk of their value declining very early in the year. But these are also players where they come out week 1, week 2, week 3, start posting 6 catches, 7 catches, 8 catches, 100 yards, touchdowns. All of a sudden, these become players who are talking about, do we put them in the second round of startups? Do we put them in the third round of startups, right? First round picks, good offenses, both have at least a plausible path to being their team's number 1 wide receiver option. There's a lot of upside beyond their current price that it could be hit almost immediately. And so, to me, I think you have a lot more to gain than lose if you go and try to trade for them right now, right? If you try and give someone, hey, you spent the 109, the 110, 110, spent the 109, the 110, the 111 on these guys. I'm going to give you like a 10, 20% profit on your investment, sight unseen. I think a lot of people might take that because, they're going to feel like, again, they're being the patient, prudent party where they haven't even seen these guys play a real NFL game yet. They're already making a bit of a profit. It's a small win for them. And I think you have a chance to take on just that minimal little inflated risk, but potentially get a very big reward because of how these guys are positioned. Now, by the same token, I look at guys like Trey Benson, for instance, not really been a fantastic preseason for him, right? Clearly behind James Conner. It doesn't look like it's going to be a timeshare right away. Also, potentially losing passing down usage to Amari DiMercato, maybe Michael Carter. And so the handcuff case doesn't look quite as straightforward as maybe would have hoped it would have been. This is one where I want people to sort of back up and remember, James Cook, second round pick, barely played until halfway through his rookie season. Rashad White, third round pick, barely played at the start of his rookie season. Devon Achane, third round pick, he was a healthy scratch, right? Tyler Algier, later pick, fifth round pick, but he was a healthy scratch to start the season. All those guys eventually became hits at the rookie draft cost. I want you to be a little bit patient here, where every team is going to take slightly different developmental paths. And this doesn't mean Trey Benson's going to hit, although I still really stand by the prospect profile, but it means that I think this is a spot where you do want to buy low, because you're going to have an opportunity here at the running back position, as we've seen, to at least see how this season goes. And he's probably going to have something break in his way, right? There's an anti-fragile profile where he's a round 3 pick. James Conner's probably going to get hurt at some point along this season. And then at some point in the offseason, you get the chance to decide, like, are you going to actually bet on Trey Benson based on whatever you've seen to move forward as the Cardinals lead back and be successful? Or do you want to try and sell at whatever opportunity it is? Conner has moved on, and it looks like it's going to be the Trey Benson show, because that's very likely to occur. So that's a spot where, even though the news has been a little bit negative, I want to be the one buying, right? And so you're saying, is there anyone you're not buying as a rookie? And at this time of the year, my answer is pretty much no, right? And the reason for that, again, is you're going to have a little bit of a runway over the next 6 weeks where you basically get to play for free to see what you find out. It's just that runway is a lot tighter than it used to be, when it used to be pretty much the full season. But for now, I think you want to be buying low, and I think you want to be buying high, because these are the opportunities for you to make serious value gains in your league. And so, long story short here, you want to be a little bit more cautious with the timeline, where you probably only have 4 to 6 weeks to make key decisions about which rookies you want to buy into and which rookies you potentially want to move off of. But right now in your leagues, that just means it's even a more crucial time to try and shore up your exposure to the 2024 rookie class. You want to be buying high on players that have an opportunity to see immediate opportunity and hold their value. And if there's players that people are freaking out about at this early stage, I think you want to be buying low there too, so that you have access to that asymmetrical upside of rookie assets. Thank you very much. I'm going to be back with you next week with another video. Pumped to bring this content to you, as always, on the Fantasy Points YouTube channel.